Kevin or Brick Ninja here, and today we're going to take a quick look at these two minifigure scale AT-ATs. This one right here is the UCS Lego set, and this one over here is the custom build designed by Rich Boy J with the instructions available on Brickfault. Obviously, both of these are pulled from the same source material, so there's lots of similarities, including their size and overall shaping, but both have been designed very differently. The most noticeable differences is going to be that this version here has almost no studs on it. There are definitely a few visible, but very small percentage of the studs are visible. This one here has quite a few studs visible. I've even lessened some of the amount. I've added some of these larger panels like they had on this section here to cut down the amount of studs. So the original set actually has a few more than what you see on this one here. The other major difference is in the legs. The legs on this here are much thinner, but that sacrifices any articulation or mobility. You can pull the legs off and reposition them, but pretty much once you got it set up, you're not moving the legs. This one here, you can reposition the legs, but it also takes a bit of effort. There's a little wrench, and you can go through and reposition the knee and then reposition the hip and do that for each leg. It takes a bit of time. Also, according to the back of the instructions, it does not advise you having the legs basically in any position other than straight down for very long. It doesn't recommend it. I think it probably would still stand for a while, if not indefinitely, but it probably just stresses the parts more than Lego wants to advise. So while this one doesn't have any articulation in the legs, this one does, but it's also not as useful as you would hope. So it is a loss on this one to not have any articulation, but it's not as big of a loss as it initially sounds. So let's take a look at the legs here on the official set. It's got some decent detailing, and I do like how smooth this part of the foot is. But let's also make note of this section up here and how little of a gap there is between the ankle part and the top of the foot. Now we're going to immediately come over to the custom ones. And as you can see, that gap is significantly larger, like it should be. This is not as smoothed off, and there's definitely some design parts on here that I'm not as big of a fan of. But I do like having that gap there. And then we can move up the leg, and you can just see how the detailing is done significantly better and more interesting than off of the Lego version. This section up here I feel like isn't quite as strong as the rest of it, but I really like these parts here. This subtle curved in there, done with the arch upside down. And just overall, the detailing on this leg is much more accurate and interesting looking. And then obviously you get the sides of the legs, that very narrow and kind of detailed look. Where coming back over here, it's just kind of more ugly studs sticking out, and then really wide legs designed for the to fit the gears in the mechanism. Here you can get a good view of the front of the AT-ATs. I really like the much narrower legs on the custom build. The ones from Lego are just way too wide. I know why it's that way, but it just seems very iconic to me with how narrow the legs are. Another thing that really bothered me about Lego's version is this support here. It is a fairly shallow angle. It's like almost a 90-degree angle, and this just sticks way too far out. But if we come over to this custom one, it sticks out a little bit further than it should, but about half as far, and that allows this to be at a much more accurate angle. Overall, I prefer this one. I think it's a cleaner, smoother look, and in most cases more accurate. There definitely are some parts on this one that I like noticeably better. The 2 points that I like significantly better on the set is the neck, which I think is much more detailed and interesting looking than this one here. And then also the guns in particular are more detailed, and most noticeably the firing back and forth mechanism that you get on the official set, where these ones here are just stable, and these side guns aren't quite as detailed. Also, we do get this hatch here, and let me see if I can open it up. That hatch is much larger and a cooler opening than this one here. This one just kind of slides up and you can click it into place. It's nice. There's some good details on the inside of this custom one, though overall I would say the details are better on the official set. But for me personally, I don't really care about the interior at all. It's not something you really ever see. It's nice to have it there, but it's just relatively unimportant for me. I will say both of these are fairly stable. You know, there's not a big amount of worry as far as if you accidentally bump the table or something like that there. Now, if you really bump the table, anything's going to fall over and nothing can save you there. Overall, the Lego set is more stable than this one here. Primarily, the legs on this are kind of thin, and it can separate pretty much right there where the ankles are at. So you got to make sure you got everything spaced out. But with both of them, you're going to have to make sure that you've got them displayed in a spot that's stable, isn't likely to get bumped, and if it does seriously get bumped, this one's a little bit more likely to survive, but if it's a serious amount of movement, it's not really going to matter which one you have. It's going to fall over and it's going to be a mess. I mentioned before that I'm not really that super excited or interested about the interior. It is easier to get into the interior on this one here. You can just kind of lift and pull that panel off, and voila, you can see all the chairs, you can see the stormtroopers, you can see the speeder bikes, all that fun stuff, and there's some great details in there. This one here, it is harder to pull off, and you pretty much pull off one section there, and you can pull these sections here off as well. It's just a lot harder to get it exactly the way it's supposed to come off and to pop them back on. There's some fun details in here. This one here's got room for the bikes. I don't have any in. And then it's also designed to have a battery pack and lights. I don't have those in either. Again, I just wasn't that into the interior. So I think it's kind of a minor moot point. But if you are interested in the interior, definitely this one is significantly better in that regards. I think some of it's also just the contrast. This one here that's all black and dark gray and the sand blue, where this one's light gray, a little bit of dark gray, and then the light medium blue. It works, it's just a little bit, it just doesn't stand out quite as much. There's not quite as much of a contrast. And overall, this one is still more detailed. So, got the panels back on. It's a little finicky on both. but overall a little bit easier on this one than on that one there. And then you can pop this open. It doesn't really stay up super well, but you can get in there and you can access the figures, which is cool. At least that's something that you do see in the movies, that area. This section here, you can kind of pop it up and get in there, but most likely you're just going to have to pull that off, which is fine. And again, you can put some figures in there, and there's a little bit of detailing in there. But again, detailing on the set is a little bit better for the interior than it is for the custom build there. Bum, bum, bum. So yeah, quick overview. Like I said, you can tell they're both very similar in size. The Lego set is slightly taller. I'm actually gonna carry this one over here. What is it, like 2 bricks taller or something like that. They are practically the same length. This one here is slightly longer. Let me back that up just a little bit. Okay, so those guns are lined up. So yeah, it's 3 or 4 studs longer. That's mostly on the guns. These guns are longer than the one on the set. Haven't done a ton of detailed research to find out which one's more accurate as far as the length of the guns and some of the more minute detail differences. I will be interested in trying to see if I can make this neck using some of these components. It might be a little bit challenging, just kind of the way that the head is supported, and this head is noticeably heavier than the one from the Lego set, so it definitely needs a stronger support system. A lot of that's because it's just more parts intensive, and this whole version is overall heavier. It uses bricks on its side rather than these plates, which are much lighter. So there you go. You can see the two. Both amazing builds. I do have to say, overall, if I'm going to choose one over the other, I'm going to personally go with this one here. I like how it looks on the outside better, and I don't care that much about the inside. You do lose the articulation in the legs, but again, I'm going to set it up and look at it, and I'm not going to really want to move the legs. So anyways, I hope that you've enjoyed this comparison, and until next time, Brick Ninja out.